Welcome to the Sports Show. I'm Andy Marks.
And I'm Byron Saucer.
Well, we got another week of prognosticating football. You beat me last week. My days of leading the pack are over with, unfortunately. We're now sitting tied with a lot of games to disagree about.
That's true. I'm sure it's no shock to anyone that I'm pulled back even and will no doubt go ahead.
Somebody's going to take a lead after this week. There are a lot of interesting games to talk about. Let's start out with the red-hot Westport Wolfpack. 2-game winning streak going to the strike zone. This is two teams that need wins.
Yeah, the Wolfpack on the heels of a 19-0 shutout at Brooksville Central where the defense scored all the points. They go into the strike zone. Bellevue is desperate for some good news. They've been outscored 42-0 and 42-7 in the last couple of losses with a bye week sandwiched in there, Forest and North Marion. So, yeah, I mean, this looks like a competitive game. The loser may not have another game that's winnable, really, on their schedule. So this is a big one for both schools. Andy, who you got?
Going to go with Westport. I'm going to take the hot team. I think personnel-wise, this could be even. It could be real interesting over there. Westport's defense has got to be confident. 6 points against Umatilla and then a shutout at Central. Bellevue hasn't really shown themselves to be above that level of competition, at least not based on scores and results. So, I'm going to take the Wolfpack in that red-hot defense.
Well, this is one of those games. We do have several of them this week, and I'll take the other side. I'll take Bellevue 14-13.
All right. Well, we've got Dunellen, a very hot team, coming off a string of big wins in a row, and they're facing a nemesis that has given them trouble the last couple of years. That would be Nature Coast Tech. The Tigers are going to go down there to play that game in Hernando County.
Yeah, the Tigers look very good this year. You've seen them a couple of times. You know how well they run the football. The defense is very solid this year. But I got back in the old cards this week, and I was looking. The last two games, Nature Coast has outscored Dunellen 98-14, including a 59-7 thumping last year. Now I know these aren't the same teams. I think this Dunellen team's better. I think this Nature Coast team probably isn't quite as good, but I'm going to have to go with the home-standing Sharks in this one.
I'm going to take the Tigers on the road. I'll tell you why. Yes, I think I was at that game last year or 2 years ago at least, when Nature Coast really hammered Dunellen. They were just getting settled into the wing tee the last time they faced Nature Coast. I think they're pretty well settled into it now. They're running the ball with authority. Bubba Black has just become an absolute force. Nature Coast, I think of their last 3 or 4 teams, I think this is maybe their weakest. I think this is the year that Dunellen grabs the reins of that rivalry. I'm going to take the Tigers 28-14. I think we may be looking at a year in which Dunellen runs the table in that district. I think they are the favorite in every game they'll play.
I think this Friday and next Friday with a trip to Crystal River certainly be the determining factor on how Dunellen does. They step up and win this Friday and next Friday, I think they coast into the playoffs, and I think we can look for big things. I think this is the first big test other than North Marion, which had no real ramifications.
Right. So, and we hate to keep harping on this Dunellen game, but that North Marion game that you talked about, a 1-point game at Dunellen, the way the North Marion's played since then, that loss for Dunellen is looking pretty good because North Marion is a very, very good team. I think among the finest in that classification in the state. Dunellen had every opportunity to win that game. They scored their equalizing touchdown with a little bit too much time on the clock, and North Marion marched down the field. So it'll be interesting to see how both of those teams wind up. Let's move on. We've got a big rivalry game. Former district rivals. Now Forest is a 6A team. Lake Weir is a 4A team. The game this year is happening at Forest. What do you think?
Lake Weir has won the last 2 in this series. I saw a crazy one on Halloween night last year where Doug Webb absolutely went off, and it wasn't enough as Tracy Curry and company led the comeback for Lake Weir. So it's hard to go against the Hurricanes, but it's another one of these games where I think I can take the other side and feel okay about it. I like what I saw from Forest as far as just tenacity, good conditioning, and really likes to get physical up front. And I think that could be the determining factor in this game. So I'm going to take Forest in a close one, 27-21.
I'll take Lake Weir. I'll tell you why. Our very own historical football.
I was hoping you would.
Our very own football historical guru, Richard Burton, showed a pretty interesting number in which under Mark Hinnerton, Lake Weir has really responded well after losses. And they've also gone from being a punching bag against county opponents to having a winning record in Hinnerton's time against county opponents. I think Hinnerton's going to get his troops ready. Both these teams have athletic quarterbacks calling the shots for them. We've got James Brooks.
Right.
James Brooks at Forest, Tracy Curry at Lake Weir. Curry's been under center longer, a little more experience. Brooks was kind of an emergency situation that is improving week after week. I like Curry and the Hurricanes in a high-scoring game, 30-28. And we mentioned North Marion a little while ago. They had a tough game with Denellen. They're playing a Newberry team that we've seen once before a few weeks back when Trinity hosted them, beat them 31-7. Newberry, however, is a quality program.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and this will be a good test for North Marion. Get out of the county and see where they kind of stand here. I look for them to handle their business. They're just too talented. But I think Newberry will absolutely line up, do what they want to do, and force you to stop them. A lot of teams will kind of let North Marion speed dictate what they try to do against them. But Newberry's going to line up and run the football. I think they might hang with the Colts for maybe 3 quarters, but I like North Marion 28-14.
I'm taking a 35-7 score. This will be a good sort of test for North Marion. I think if North Marion is in top form, they win the game as easily as I'm predicting. If they have a little hiccup, it'll be closer. It's not a game that they're necessarily going to win at all. I'll tell you, Newberry was able to run the ball against Trinity. Denellen was able to run the ball against North Marion. Newberry's running back Demetrius DuBose is a good running back who's going to gain yards. It's just a matter of how well the Colts limit him. I'm going to say they hold their own just because North Marion to me is a high-quality team this year, 35-7. And speaking of Trinity, which we just did, interesting matchup at home for the Celtics against Eastside, which is a team that we thought was going to be right there with North Marion for their district title. Eastside got hammered by Vanguard last week.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means that Vanguard is really good. They're starting to look that way. Is this a down year for Eastside? I think maybe we'll find out the answer to some of those questions.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think maybe Eastside's dipped a little bit this year. Vanguard's certainly on the upswing. There's no question about that. I think that this could be an interesting game because the Eastside team limps in at 2-4, but you know they're going to have athletes. And, frankly, Trinity at times can struggle against these types of teams. So we'll see. I think the Celtics handle business, but I think it'll be a nice test before they get in that district stretch run. I'm going to take the Celtics 31-20.
Yeah, the Celtics seem to be on a roll. I think you mentioned it last week. Ever since they kind of recovered against Newberry and blew them out in the second half, they've been different ever since then. They seem to have more identity in their passing game. I think their defense has pretty much been all right all along.
Yeah.
It really hasn't been their issue. I like them by around the same margin, 26-14. Eastside has a quarterback that you got to be really careful with. His name's Harold Hoskins. He could throw it. He could run it. Seems like maybe the difference this year is they've had some other skill players out there on the wing, and they're not there this year. At least they haven't been so far. So, yeah, we're both looking at around a 2-touchdown game there. The feel-good story of the year this year may be Ocala Christian Academy.
Yeah.
They've had a string of really resounding blowouts against teams that just didn't belong on the same field with them. This one is not supposed to be like that.
Yeah, now, I mean, it's one of those deals where Faith Baptist is the team to beat because they won it last year. But it seems like maybe looking at the schedule, OCA may have handled their real test a couple of weeks back when they handled Landmark, who knocked off Faith last week fairly handily. So I think it's certainly a test. This is that next hurdle. OCA clears this. They take the FCC regular season crown, take the number 1 seed into the playoffs. I think they will get it done. Like you say, they're just too explosive this year. I mean, they finally have those guys that, all they need is a crease, and it's 6. Looking at the stat lines for Moreland and Jabril Stewart last year were, 50-yard reception, 40-yard punt return, 30-yard run. They score in a variety of ways, and I think they'll be too much for Faith. I'll take them by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the wide margin. OCA, I'll say 42-14. Got to give you credit because I think very early in the season you predicted an undefeated season for OCA. It's looking like they're going to follow that trend. We'll see. I like them to win this week. I like them to get into the playoffs, and I like them to go all the way to the championship game, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, blowout win again against a team that we originally thought was going to push them. So our other small private school, St. John, been a struggle out there. They've got a game on their schedule where if you do the homework a little bit, it looks like they got a chance.
Yeah, and they've had a couple of weeks to prepare for this one, I think. So they're at Hernando Christian, who is winless this year, dropping their last game to Seven Rivers, which is St. John's lone win this season.
Right.
This is their first year of football. So I think that kind of tells the tale there for Hernando Christian. I like the Saints and a squeaker on the road.
I'm going to seize the opportunity to pick against you just so we can have a lot of stuff to argue with. I don't have a lot of information on Hernando Christian, to be honest with you, but I'll take them over St. John 21-20 in a wild one. We do have a Vanguard team we mentioned just briefly on bye this week, a well-deserved bye after an impressive one run of games. I'd like to encourage everybody, for the teams that are playing, if you can't get out to the field, go to Ocala.com. We've got a live real-time scoreboard. We're all churning out updates from our respective sites, and we'll be back next week to talk about what happened.